Hi friends, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Pandocap. We have a special guest today that I'll introduce shortly, but I want to start by sharing a little bit about why we're focused on this discussion today. As the COVID quarantine started, every company sent their employees home, and many have quickly adopted to a new working from home culture. But now that that has lifted, we're transitioning back and we're starting to think about how we can accomplish a safe environment for people to come back into their offices. And so CEOs are trying to consider how to manage that. So Michaela, can you please share your background to our audience and your journey to where you are today?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Laura, and I'm so excited to be here on Pandocap today. Like Laura mentioned, my name is Michaela, and I work at Colliers in San Francisco. Previously, I actually started my career in New York, and I ran business development and partnerships for a residential brokerage there. Moved back to San Francisco and got into high-profile administrative recruiting and focused a lot on tech and VC positions, and decided at the end of the day that I really wanted to work on something more tangible. So that led me to real estate. And I work with an incredible team. It's called Occupier Services Bay Area, and we focus solely on tenant representation, and we help companies locally and globally with their real estate portfolios and strategies.
So what are you seeing in terms of that expansion or contraction of office space?
Absolutely. So we haven't really seen expansion yet. I think that we're in this phase where there's a lot of speculative conversation and there's a lot of discussion around how do we move forward and what does that mean? I think that it's still too early, even though it feels like we've been in this forever. But I think that what we've actually seen so far is significant shedding of space in San Francisco. Since the shelter in place was put in order, there's been 600,000 plus square feet of sublease space come onto the market. And that is not including Uber and Airbnb and Lyft and Glassdoor, which recently announced additional layoffs. So today in San Francisco specifically, that's 40% of the market, which is super high. And I think that it just speaks to people's concern of, what does this mean long term? And the fact that people are needing to cut costs now because they're having to lay off workers. And so I think that the shedding of space is immediate on the sublease front. I think moving forward with new deals, it's still too early to tell if companies are going to take more space because they need to spread out employees, or if they're going to need less space because not everyone's going to come to the office. So that's down the road, but definitely a conversation that people are talking about.
Those companies who will be taking that step to move forward with coming back to the office, are you guys sharing any guidance on safety, or what are you hearing from your clients in terms of what that looks like for companies who are deciding to take that step?
A lot of the safety measures are pretty standard across the board. I think that when you look at office space and what we're seeing, the biggest things are every other desk. So spreading people out, meaning, I would say on average, it will be about 20% of the workforce will come in on a daily basis to make sure that everyone is seated 6 feet apart. Implementing traffic in the office, which sounds really odd, but, walking always to the right in the corridors because they're not wide enough. The one that I think is probably the biggest kind of wow factor is thinking about shared spaces, whether that's kitchens or reception areas or lounges. Those areas can't be open right now. And if you have a reception area that, seats 10, it can really seat 3 now. So we're seeing that as far as the actual kind of layout of the office. As far as additional health things, obviously much more frequent cleaning, temperature checks in and out of the building. We're seeing 1 to 2 people in elevators, which I think is a huge issue for San Francisco when you look at all of these dense office towers. That's going to create a bottleneck, and it's going to create a lot of time that people are waiting. And then lastly, I think the biggest thing that's kind of surfaced over the past few weeks, and this is one that, we're more discussing with our clients, but there isn't an answer to it, is implementing safety procedures in the office is important, but how do you help people navigate the process of getting there? So is it public transit? Is it, people can't come because of childcare? Is it, do they feel unsafe going home to their families after they're in the office and potentially exposed? And so I think it's more of those kind of big picture egress topics that are the ones that are really challenging. And so I think those will kind of start to unfold. But, as we phase back in here, it's, going into the office is going to look really different.
Have you seen companies, kind of say, forget about the safety measures, let's just get back to work because this is such a strain on our business and the overall economy?
Mm-hmm. So I personally haven't. And I think that I actually fortunately have seen a lot of companies take a very, very diligent approach in making sure that they're doing everything they can to understand where employees stand on this matter. Pretty much every single one of our clients have done surveys at this point about, the return to work and when are you comfortable going back? What would make you comfortable?
Right.
What are your concerns? I think that when you look at office versus, Tesla, for example, it's probably a lot of their warehouse workers. I think that type of work is probably safer right now, but that approach I don't think is necessarily a good one because everyone has a different risk tolerance and some people may be impacted by this in ways that you don't know, and everyone has their personal thoughts on it and their different comfort levels and anxiety around it. And so I think that for companies to go back and do so in a way that is comfortable for all of their employees, I think that if you are going to open, implementing all of these safety measures and making sure that they're totally in place is absolutely key, because even though some people may not be that concerned about it, others may be really concerned about it, and that may prevent them from going back. And so I think that, you need to cover all your bases. I think that everyone wants to get back to work yesterday, but you have to be realistic about, one, legal ramifications if you don't have things in place, and two, your employees' health and well-being. So what can you do to make people feel comfortable, and just realize that it's going to take time and everyone's going to work at their own pace.
What are you seeing, in terms of the rest of the year or even next year on the real estate side?
Absolutely. So historically, real estate has always lagged the market and the overall economy. And I think that will remain accurate in this case. But because this was so sudden, I do think that it will be a little bit quicker. Unfortunately, I really think that things are going to get much worse before they get better. You look back at April and office rents were about 95% as far as collections go. And so I think that shows that, things were remaining strong. I think that May and June are going to be worse because we're just extending this amount of time that people are out of work. And I think that if you look forward, I think, it could be 2 to 3 years. And I think that real estate is a slow market in the sense that, or in the speed in which it's impacted. I think that, when you look at the sublease space that's on the market in San Francisco right now and the flexibility in rate and what people are asking, I think that points to the prediction that rents are going to go down and there is going to be increased vacancy, and landlords are going to have to start lowering their rents to be competitive with these subleases. And so I think that, the demand will come back. People will want and will remember the importance of going to the office. But the future of workplace and what going to the office looks like is going to be very differently. From a fundamental level, I think it's too early to tell what that looks like. But I think that tenants are going to really have to kind of shift what they're considering when they look at new buildings. And I think when you look at new leases, I think that, we've been in a landlord market for a long time that's been on the up and up. And I think that we're very quickly shifting into a tenant market, and tenants are going to have more opportunity and more flexibility and leverage in, what they're negotiating. So whether that's termination rights or shorter terms or lower rents, those are things that, in the next 12 to 18 months, there are going to be some things to take advantage of as a tenant. And I think that's going to come. That said, right now, it's a hard pause. And, it's crazy to look at some of the biggest companies in the world and the ones that are driving the market who are kind of leading that, like everyone is paused. Why would you make a decision? As a broker, our advice is the same thing, is, kick the can down the road, because no decision made today is going to be justified because we don't know. There's so much uncertainty. We don't know where the market's going to be in 2 months. And so, the overall sentiment at this point is kind of just wait and see. But But I am not a believer that work from home is going to be forever. And hopefully that's not the case because I won't have a job. But I do think that, it's going to be a long road.
Well, thank you for joining us on Pandocap, Michaela. And
thank you.
Your time.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. I really enjoyed speaking with you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bye, Laura.